Good morning, everyone. I'm told that we can start our session for this morning, and I know that a lot of people are going to be coming in as the session progresses, so don't worry about it. We're just going to keep moving. Good morning, everyone. All protocol observed, and welcome to a webinar about the events industry and its impact on the local economy. This is proudly brought to you by Proudly South African and the Council of Events Professionals, more commonly known as CEPA. I am Lebo Lion, known as the voice of marketing, and I'm going to be your host for what promises to be a really exciting session about the events industry. In accordance with Proudly South African's clarion call of buy local and support jobs, this session promises to not only be informative, but collaborative and entertaining as well. And that basically means that we are not going to bore you, and we encourage audience participation because this session is for you. This is your opportunity to extract as much value as you can from event industry professionals so that you can position your business optimally for success in the events industry. This is also a capacity building webinar that acts as a one-stop shop for SMMEs, entrepreneurs, and professionals, and it will help them gain valuable insights into the events industry in South Africa and its profound impact on the local economy. Learn about the Proudly South African Buy Local campaign and how it actively supports and drives local businesses. Acquire knowledge about professional certification in the industry and understand its significance. And discover the bidding and support services available to nurture and grow your business. And because we have such a jam-packed session for this morning, I don't want to take too long talking about all the house rules. I really want everyone to enjoy this event, and I want the event to speak for itself. So just to get through a few things that we need to know before we start, let's talk about social media. I know a lot of people are joining us, not just on the Zoom webinar, but also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you're welcome to share this event with your friends and your colleagues if you think that it could be valuable to them. If you are on Twitter, you can tag us at ProudlySA. On Instagram, it's at proudly.sa. And on Facebook, it's Proudly South African. You can also use the hashtag buy local and create jobs on every single platform. Let's make this conversation viral because it's so important. And I think a lot of people could learn about what we're talking about today. And don't hesitate to ask us questions. Remember, this session is for you. All you have to do is click on the Q&A icon, add your question, and the team and I will gather the questions and ask them as the session progresses. So don't worry about that. As you know, we have an esteemed panel of guests, people who are considered leaders and captains of the events industry. And as somebody who has spoken for a lot of corporates and I've spoken in a lot of rooms, I can tell you for free that it is very rare to find an organization that has the courage to have a CEO who will engage with stakeholders on a platform like this. And I think that truly speaks to the authenticity and the inclusive nature and transparent nature of Proudly South African. Therefore, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker, who is the CEO of Proudly SA, Mr. Eustace Mashimbia. Welcome. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Lebo. Thank you very much for the introduction, for the warm welcome. Good morning to all those who have graced us with their presence and have joined this webinar as introduced. My name is Eustace Mashimbia, and I'm the Chief Executive for Proudly South African. I'm going to help set the tone for this conversation that we're going to have with an esteemed panel of guests who have agreed to share with us their insights and their knowledge of this industry. So mine is just to set the tone, and the big guns are really coming after me. And so we are a buy local campaign, and what we seek to do is to have entrepreneurs like the one you see on screen with a big smile, thanking everyone for walking into a store and for buying from her, because that's what it's about. You run a business with a sole intent of making money and being profitable, remaining sustainable, keeping your doors open, and creating jobs in the process, because those jobs ultimately impact on households where in some instances, especially in a country like ours, that person who's employed in a business like this might be the only one with an income. And so the impact of us choosing to support an entrepreneur like this is very critical. And that's why a campaign like ours exists. The country battles three main challenges. The main one being unemployment, and the numbers as released by Statistics South Africa at the end of Q2 of this current calendar year points to the fact that we have an unemployment rate of 32.6%, with 7.9 million people actively looking for jobs who cannot find jobs, another 3.2 million who are discouraged. And if you look at the expanded definition, it simply means we're sitting with unemployment of 11.9 million people, and just over 42% of our people who could be in jobs who are not in employment. And it's a ticking time bomb. In my view, it is the reason why we have some of the social ills that we have as a country, because there are people who really are battling to fend for themselves in the absence of employment, and they are resorting to what we, are battling with as a country by way of, crime and related issues. And so we have to find a way to pull as many of our people out of that unemployment situation as possible. And so our mandate as Proudly South African is quite simple and it's quite straightforward, is that as a buy local campaign, we seek to influence anyone who makes a purchase decision, whether they sit in the public sector, whether they're buying for the private sector. We need to educate the general public. We need to make sure that anyone who makes a purchasing decision understands that if you go and you buy a product that is made outside of South Africa, you're supporting a job in that country. And for this morning, let's pick on China. If you buy a product that is made in China, you're effectively creating jobs in China. That is why China's population is in excess of 1.2 billion people living there, but the unemployment rate is constantly between 3 to 6%, never as high as what we see ours to be. Sorry, apologies. We're sitting at 42% if you look at the expanded definition. And so the role of Proudly South African is quite simple. We also have to ensure that those who then choose to buy locally made products can easily access the locally made products and services that we have been able to come across. And so every time you come across a product that carries the Proudly South African logo, you know that it embodies these four key values. The first one being that the product itself carries local content and is made in South Africa, that irrespective of where the raw materials come from, because in some instances, the raw materials and components required to produce some of the products that we consume are not necessarily available in the country. And so we want those who make products, those who sell products, to make them within the borders of South Africa, and as best as possible source even the raw materials and components required to source them locally. In the instance where we're dealing with services, because today we're talking events, which is more in the services side of things, that those who render services, those who put together this kind of events that we like, ensure that as best as possible utilize that which they source in South Africa in the course of executing their events and implementing all of their activities. The products that affiliate with us, or companies that affiliate with us for purposes of rendering services, have to ensure that they render services of a high quality nature, that the products are of a high quality nature and conform to best practice and to that which is prescribed by the industries in which the products come from. The other two are softer issues, but equally important, in that companies that affiliate with us have to ensure that they help us preserve the environment, they help us reduce the carbon footprint by recycling where it's possible, reusing waste, disposing of waste responsibly, and employing some of those environmentally sound practices. And lastly, companies that affiliate with us have to ensure that they treat their workers fairly and in accordance with the labor legislation of the country. So every time you come across a Proudly South African logo on a product, on a letterhead, on a website, or on any collateral that indicates that that company affiliates with us, you know that they've gone through a vetting process, they conform with these four key criteria, and you can trust that they'll deliver to you a high quality product. Our focus as Proudly South African, therefore, is on opening up markets and making access to market opportunities available to our members. And we do this through different ways. We have a focus on e-commerce, because the advent of buying from the comfort of your home or from your workplace has really grown. And so we have partnerships with entities that have high traffic volume on each of their platforms. We've made this available to our members. Our members can list their products on there. They can sell on those platforms. And we, through the partnerships we have with these platforms, are able to carry some of the costs linked to them selling their products on those platforms. And those are for those who are targeting B2C platforms and intend to sell to customers, or even those who are targeting B2B platforms and intend to sell to other businesses. Those are just some of the examples of the partnerships we have, over and above the fact that we are rolling out our own online store in the next couple of months, and that will sort of grow and widen the base for those who want to sell their products on online platforms. We also have a strategy that targets the private sector. We get the private sector to give us commitments on products that they're going to buy locally. We have buyer sessions. A good example of that is the Wine Expo, where we take wine members of Proudly South African, we put them in front of buyers that come from retail, from hotels, from event companies. Those who make purchasing decisions for those type of products are then exposed to products that are made in South Africa, and they can then buy those and list them on their databases, put them on shelves, such that we expose these products to consumers ultimately. We have come up with portals. We do buy space at expos and markets for our members to go and sell. We look at opportunities that come with trade fairs, and we then buy the space and take our members to those platforms so that they can go and sell. And most importantly, we do a lot of lobbying with retailers, with associations that represent a lot of buying, to ensure that they ultimately give us commitments for them to buy local. So there are a lot of access to market opportunities. In the interest of time, I've sort of summarized it on the slide. And the last one is where we focus on public sector procurement, and this is what government buys. So whether you're a national government department, provincial government department, a municipality, or even a state-owned company as big as Transnet and Eskom, and the smaller ones as well, we work with all of them to ensure that in their policies, they include provisions that allow them to buy locally, to choose to give preference to locally made products. And we monitor their tenders and work with the State-Owned Enterprises Procurement Forum to ensure that all state-owned companies buy locally ultimately. And so back to the topic for today, I thought I must just give you a sense of who Proudly South African is and what it's about before I talk about the importance of the events industry in South Africa for the local economy. We are a strategic partner to a lot of events, and the reason why we're a strategic partner to a lot of events, over and above the fact that we use the events for access to market opportunities, and you're going to hear from Lloyd Cornwall as an example later, from the Delicious Food and Music Festival, who will talk to you about what the event is about. And we have a lot of our vendors and a lot of our traders, a lot of our companies who are in that food and beverages space, selling their products at platforms like that. And that's just one example. We have many industries, many event industry activities that we participate in, and that is just one example. We like the events because it is made up of a lot of activities such as conferences, trade shows, concerts, sports events, weddings, and more, and all of this play a significant role in creating jobs, and they contribute to other sectors of the economy. There's what we call the multiplier effect in terms of the economics. And if you look at the impact of the events industry on other industries, it's quite massive in that it allows us to create a multitude of jobs in other industries. So these are just some of the examples that I thought I could quickly touch on. When you plan your event, there's event planners, there's venue managers, there's event coordinators who are all involved in planning for an event. When you look at the different suppliers and vendors, it can range from caterers, florists, decorators, audiovisual technicians, these companies that we rent equipment for purposes of putting together events. There's a lot of printing that happens ahead of events. There's marketing that happens, and all of those are jobs that are created in that space. If you think of the tourism and hospitality industries, hotels, it's restaurants and transportation services that benefit from events, because if you're attending an event outside of town, you need a place to stay. You're going to rent a car, you're going to get into a flight. And so it helps boost the tourism industry in that specific town, that specific city, in that specific region or province, every time an event is hosted anywhere, because then people do flock to that event who are not necessarily based in that town. In terms of entertainment and talent, you're going to hear about this later, but With every event, there's performers and artists and MCs and entertainers. Bolebo, Lion is here today. Those are people who benefit from decisions made to host events, from decisions made by us to attend and support our own events. There's a lot of technology that goes into events, especially in the era we are in now. It helps to make things seamless. And so all of those techies, together with software developers, benefit from a purchasing decision. So there are direct jobs created for small businesses that I've touched on, like event planners, venue staff, caterers, technicians, and security. There are also indirect jobs from other industries that are part of those ancillary industries that are part of the value chain, who benefit from that multiplier effect that I spoke about. And those are transportation, hospitality, marketing, and production. And seasonal jobs are created in some instances because some events happen once off, and during that time, jobs are created. But if you think of sports, if you think of a soccer match, a rugby match, or a cricket match, every time that is hosted, there are jobs that are created every single time your favorite team plays at the stadium where they play. And so the local economy really stands to benefit. And all those people who are then employed, whether seasonally or directly or indirectly, for purposes of hosting these events, acquire sets of skills, and they can then utilize those skills for them to go start up their own business or to find and access other more permanent opportunities. Because when they are there, they are learning. When they are there, they're exposed. Because when you are home, you are not exposed and you don't acquire any skills. And so this is very important. So as I conclude, Program Director, I want to quickly take the audience through our most recent campaign known as Second Half. The reason why we call it Second Half is because if you think of a sporting game, and I think the World Cup semi-final that we saw last week between South Africa and England is a classical example of the fact that you can, as a team, not have the best first half, but at halftime, you do things differently. You change the team, you bring in other players, you change tactics, you change your approach, and in the second half, you come back stronger and you do well. And that's what, as Police South African, we're calling on South Africans to do. We're saying the period that we went through before the hard lockdown, before the COVID pandemic hit our shores, was not well for the economy. We were already in a recession. We already had, the highest levels of unemployment at the time since the introduction of the quarterly labor force survey by Statistics SA. We had already been downgraded by all rating agencies. So everything that could potentially go wrong in terms of our economy had gone wrong even before the pandemic hit us. And so we are seeing that period during the pandemic with the hard lockdown as halftime. And so now that we're in the second half, as the economy has opened up again, fully opened up again, and this is one of the industries that was hardest hit and is now benefiting from the fact that the economy has opened up. We need to do things differently. So we're calling on those who are part of the events industry to also look at where their products come from, to look at where their equipment comes from, to source South African talent, to support South African talent when looking for people to utilize for their events, for whatever purpose that is linked to the events industry. And so as South Africans, we're also saying to you, look at where the product comes from when you make a purchasing decision. Support South African events industry, support services made in South Africa, such that this second half that we are now in by way of our economy is better than where we were in the first half. We have an opportunity to do things differently. And so I want to quickly play the ad and then I can conclude.
There's a voice that is calling, loudly calling, day by day, the voice of the future.
When I started my business, all I wanted was to create jobs and a legacy for the next generation, because I see opportunity when others see impossibility.
It all started with a thought and then a seed in the garden, which grew into my very own farm that feeds the whole nation daily.
Cotton, silk, and a little bit of treasure, I create masterpieces that give South Africans an identity, comfort, and confidence, because when you look good, you feel good.
From the factory workers to the warehouse and then over the seas, I want to show the world what proudly South African looks like. It all started with just some ink on paper and inspiration to bring people together. With my furniture, I now help create spaces that are beautiful, comfortable, and authentic to human light and connection.
I've always been driven by curiosity. It fueled my dreams to create automobiles that accelerate our nation into greater possibilities and the beauty of the unknown.
I was born into a rainbow nation. My life has been full of colors and mixed flavors. And when I started my bakery, I wanted to share that joy with the world and with South Africans in particular.
All I ever dreamt of was to be a bird and fly high. And now I have the wings to help others fulfill their dreams of flying high too.
But it can only be a dream until you make it a reality. All they need is your faith, your trust, your loyalty, your appreciation.
And most importantly,
Your support.
because supporting local businesses
helps create jobs
And secures our future.
South Africa, their future is in your hands. So what are you going to do about it? Be proudly South African. Buy local to create jobs.
And that's our campaign. Their future is in your hands. What are you going to do about it? What kind of economy are we going to pass on to the next generation? And so the question always comes up, Program Director, around how much it costs to become a member of Proudly South African. So I thought I'll leave that for last. I have to sell at some point, otherwise I will have failed. So it's quite reasonable. The perception out there is that it's expensive. It's not. It's 500 rands for companies that have a turnover of less than 5 million rands. And the most that you will ever pay as a member of Proudly South African is 100,000 rands. And that is for companies with turnovers of 100 million rands and more. And so the second half is in your hands, Mzansi. Let's be like Diboke. They've showed us that in the second half, you can turn it around. Let's turn it around. Thank you very much. Make contact with us. info@proudlysa.co.za or 113277778, info@proudlysa.co.za, and let's help you become part of the movement. Help us grow the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eustace, for such a riveting presentation. I actually learned quite a bit about the role that Proudly SA plays in job creation, and I think it's very profound. So thank you for sharing with us. And like you said, the future truly is in our hands, right? Everybody who's joined the Zoom is a stakeholder in the events industry. And I'm not sure if everyone's aware of the power that they possess in just being able to create jobs and create a brighter future by having businesses that they nurture and build and grow. So thank you for that. It was really invaluable. And I think a lot of people are going to walk away with a new mindset and a way to think differently about the future of their contribution to the South African economy. Right. I've been told that on Twitter, people are busy. You are typing, you are tagging us. I'm loving it. On Twitter, if you want to tag us, you just type @ProudlySA, and you can use the hashtag #BuyLocalCreateJobs. If you want to talk to us on Instagram, it's @proudly.sa, and on Facebook, it's Proudly South African. Simple, simple, simple. Engage with us. We want to know what you think. We want to know how you feel about this Zoom and what you're learning from it, and the questions that you have for our wonderful panel of speakers that we have for you this morning. Now, the tricky thing about Zoom and all these virtual conversations is that we can't really tell how everybody feels. I can't see your faces, and I want to see your beautiful faces. I want to see your reactions to the conversations. So what we have decided to do is to play a little game throughout this Zoom conversation. I think it's going to allow us to see if there really is a pulse and a heartbeat behind these screens, right? And this is a game that I crafted quite simply. It's a very simple game, very easy for us to play. And it's basically asking us how much we know about the products that we produce as South Africans, right? The first question that I have for you when it comes to this little game, I haven't come up with a name for it yet, but we're going to play the name anyway. And I think this question is going to appeal to the person who understands the meaning of Phuza Thursday. And you know who you are. Don't act like you don't. But the first question is, what is the red wine varietal that was originally created in South Africa in the 1920s? One of my clues is that one of the grapes that they used to produce this wine is the Pinot Noir grape. I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer that question. You can put it in the Q&A box. You can answer it on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. It's okay. We will look at the answers after the second presentation. But I'll ask that question one more time because I know some of you will say, oh no, I got the answer wrong because I didn't hear the question. The question is, What is the red wine varietal that was originally created in South Africa in the 1920s? One of the grapes they used to produce the wine is a Pinot Noir grape. If you're somebody in the food and bev section, you should know the answer to this question. Okie dokie. While we let you answer those questions and get back online and share this conversation with your friends, let's get on to our second speaker. So our second speaker actually comes from an organization that has the word bureau at the end. And every time I see someone's bio and they represent an organization that either has the word bureau, commission, or agency at the end, I know for sure that that person is inundated with questions from a lot of people every single day. So today, to clarify some of your burning questions about bid assistance and support services, we have the beautiful and accomplished Noni Kubeka, who is the head of the Gauteng Conventions and Events Bureau. Noni, the stage is yours. Is Noni there? Okay, wonderful. The stage is yours.
Is it good morning still? Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this webinar. And as they've said, I'm Noni Kubeka, and I head the Gauteng Convention and Events Bureau, and I'm based in the Gauteng Tourism. In the meantime that I'm loading my presentation, I wanted to just explain to the audience that tourism has pillars, and one of the pillars is business tourism. So we all market for people to come to the destination, and the way we market it's different. Some people market through leisure, some people market through events, some people market through conferences, or we market through exhibition. So we know about leisure, we know about us visiting friends and relatives, as also taking holidays and going to the beach and all that. But today we are going to concentrate on business events, and business events consist of MICE. People know it as MICE. Other people know it as business tourism, and it consists of meetings, conferences, events, exhibitions, and incentives. We don't see a lot of incentives in the country, but when we talk about incentives in a business tourism aspect of things, it's when companies like Adidas, all these big companies, Vodacom, will give their managers maybe a reward for doing best, and then they go around the country, touring countries and all those kind of things. So those are some of the things. Are you seeing my presentation? Okay, if you don't see it, I'll ask the organizers to share it. I'll just continue with my presentation whilst they are sort of loading it. So the next, I think the next part of my presentation talks about, discovering the vital role of events and how we can contribute and how we can also benefit. As I've said, I'm from the Convention Bureau, so what we do is to position the destination. In this case, I position Gauteng, and what I do is that I bid for events, and then when the event is here, I will definitely host the event. So what I want to take you through is that what do we do when we host, and how can an entrepreneur out there benefit from this bidding and from this hosting. So the main thing in bidding and hosting is attracting and hosting events in a coordinated approach. So the way we do it, it's a proactive bidding of events. When you do proactive, it means that you go and look for events that can come to the destination. There are several databases and systems that we use to bring those particular events into the destination, and we coordinate with different suppliers and collaborate with event organizers or conference organizers. You must let me know when my presentation is showing, but I will continue. And then you do strategic partnership when you present. I think what we need to know is that there is support for meeting planners, for event organizers, and everyone who wants to bring an event into the destination. And bringing into the event into a destination doesn't mean you have to go international or in other African countries to get that particular event. Some people see events happening maybe in Durban or in KZN, and they would like to bring it in maybe in Gauteng, and they can talk with the organizers and start engaging the bureau, and so that they can get different support. So it's not only about international, but it's also about local. And if you've got an event in your own region or in your own community that you want to incubate, you also get support in that. So there's a difference. There's a difference in bidding and also in hosting. So when we bid, we identify and then attract, lobby, do all those kind of things. And in Zulu, we say, we are shela. So that is the process of the bidding. And then when you've got the event, when you are awarded the event, the next thing that you need to do is start now planning for the event. And there's several things that you need to do, but the bureau goes with you in all those kind of steps until the event is hosted in the destination. I mean, Lloyd will tell you how, we went through with him up to where we are in the support that we give, whether the event is at bidding stage or the event is at hosting stage. We do give different support packages of that. And in return, these events, remember, they are here to position the destination, increase the numbers in terms of spend, because if we have more events and people spend, that's when jobs can be created. So we don't only want to create the jobs, but we also want to sustain them. We also want to create an enabled environment, improve infrastructure, and also reduce seasonality, especially in the places where there is no economic activity. So events bring that economic activity in those local areas. They create a sense of pride among the residents. I mean, we know, all of us, that when Delicious is here, when Makelwane is here, when Moretele is here, we talk about it all the time, and that shows that sense of pride. But besides that, it's a way of promoting transformation in a way that we identify business opportunities that SMME can tap in. We create access for township suppliers so that they are able to leverage and also bring business. I think time is, gone for us to be saying to small businesses, please come and exhibit, come and whatever. When you exhibit, you need to get the ROI, you need to get that business, you need to get something out of it, because every time is money. So we need to make sure that immediately when there are business opportunities of SMMEs, it's business opportunities that can translate into a transaction. The other thing that is promoting transformation is us forcing event organizers, Lloyd will tell you, event organizers to use local products, to also use local services. Even if we bid for an international event, what we do is that certain services that are in the country, it's one of those things that we usually say to them in a contract format, we need you to use local suppliers, use the government database to choose those particular suppliers. We don't choose the suppliers for them, but we give them a list where they can identify and also get suppliers that meet their requirements. And then last of all, we strengthen the home of championship positioning as Gauteng on our side. So all in all, why are we doing these particular events? Why are we bidding? Why are we hosting these particular events? At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we sustain existing jobs and also create new jobs. At the end of the day, our sector, which is the events or the business events sector, benefits as it contributes to the economy and also contributes to the society as a whole. In my presentation, I've got the bidding process from conception. If we bid, what do we do with suppliers, and up to the whether we win. If we win, then we go to the marketing of it. How do you market the event, and how do you go further in making sure that in each and every step of the bidding process you involve suppliers, local suppliers, you involve PCOs or professional conference organizers and exhibition organizers that are growing, including entertainment and all other services. So the bidding process starts from identifying of the event. We don't do it alone. We do it with everybody. We do it with different stakeholders that are involved within the bidding process until the hosting of the event. And I mean, there's different roles and different elements that you can get in the bidding process, starting from event management companies that are needed, event producers, trade exhibitors, and exhibition management companies that can exhibit it, and all that. There are materials and services that are needed for the event to happen. We've got hoteliers, we've got convention centers, we've got convention facilities, we've got event catering that is needed, we've got tourism services such as ground transportation, pre and post tours, incentive trips, and it's a lot. I can't say all of them in this particular meeting, but we go to an extent that you look at the program that is there, the booklets that are printed within the event itself. It includes local services. Therefore, it is important that we gear or we push event organizers to use the local services. And buying local, it's not only products, it's goods and services that event organizers can buy. So which events do we host? We've got small community events that we host and we incubate. And in there, within that, the entire value chain of an event is involved. Up to, we've got local events, we've got significant events, major events, and iconic events, and all of those type of events we do assist, and depending on the evaluation process and also what ROI we're going to get, then we support. The slide that I'm in, it's a slide where I'm talking about buying local. What kind of opportunities are there in the eventing space when you host or when you bid? So the opportunities are in three sectors. There is the event sector, there is the tourism sector, and there is the economic sector. So within the event sector, we've got entertainment, gifting, staging, set design, construction, decor, everything that we hire, catering, venues, IT and technology. We also have something like influencers, the guides, the volunteers, and all that. In terms of tourism side of things, we've got the retail. The shopping part is quite huge. We can sell our own products. We can sell our own bucket hats and all that. We've got accommodation. We've got food and beverage. We've got guides, tour operators, travel agencies, attractions, car hire, buses, airlines, airport. I'm counting all that so that we can actually see that from one event, the value chain is as long as you want it to be. And you, as an entrepreneur, you can look at the event and say, what do I offer? Is it possible to send my proposal? And it is important that the way we do proposals, the way we do codes, we do it in an informed way. It mustn't be generic. It must be targeted to that event, so that the event owner can understand and see that we know what we're doing. So we've got support services that we offer on our side, and it's both financial and in-kind support. So some in-kind support will include political supports, visa facilitation if it's an international event, familiarization trips for maybe artists and all those kind of people, trade partnership, trade opportunities to talk to trade in order to support your event, partner identification. There are certain people that really need partner and support and relationship. In terms of bid support preparation, we prepare the bid document with you and support you throughout, including the bidding fund, because as you bid, there are certain funds that you need in the bidding process, both locally and internationally. And then we also have hosting support. We usually take out a request for proposal and ask the event organizers from Gauteng to submit. Now we've got a national that has taken that. We've got an RFP that the National Tourism has taken out for event organizers to submit their proposal. And make sure when you submit that you include the impacts. The economic impact is important. How many people will be there? The social impact is important. How you, as an event organizer, you are going to contribute your own investment in terms of how are you going to contribute, how are you going to grow this event, because at the end, we need events that are sustainable, events that we can rely on, but events that we can support. So there is what we call a subvention funding. It's not a sponsorship, it's a grant that we help in order to make sure that the event grows, and the certain events that we, according to our objectives. Remember, we cannot support everyone. So we support according to the objectives, and our objectives and the government objectives are all over the media. You can find it everywhere. So when you are responding to the request for proposal, make sure that you align to the government objectives, because we select according to how is this event going to benefit certain objectives that we have. So it is important. We also have an incubation program where we assist with project management of events, where we see this event has potential, but it's not sustainable because there's no project management, there is no partnerships, there's no training and all that. So it is important that we use these services. They are on our website, and you can also consult Gauteng Tourism, and they will be able to assist you. I'll stop there. It's a lot in terms of bidding and hosting, but I thought, let me summarize and just make people aware of what is out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Noni, for your presentation. It was very informative. In fact, two of my key takeaways from your presentation was, one, that buying Proudly South African is not just buying goods, but it's services as well. So it's your MCs, the influencers that you're hiring. Everybody contributes to making your event or whatever you're doing more South African, more Proudly South African by hiring the right people. So I really love that. And the second part, which I thought was really cool and very South African, was you said the process of bidding is like ubushela, and I think a lot of people don't perceive it that way. For those people who don't know what ubushela means, it means to flirt, to court, it's a song and dance. You don't just approach the organization, you assess the stakeholders, you customize. Noni spoke about don't be generic, customize your offering so that it appeals to the right people. So I really love that concept of ubushela when you're bidding, make yourself stand out to the right people so you can get the results that you want. Thank you for your presentation. That was really lovely. I've seen in the Q&A section, guys, that a lot of people have asked if they will receive the presentation after our webinar, and we will be streaming or at least posting this webinar on YouTube after the webinar. So you are welcome to go there and check the presentation if you need to go back to look at notes or to see anything that you might have missed. And in terms of our online amplification, you guys are doing a great job. However, my fellow South Africans, I noticed on Twitter that some of us, because I said the hashtag is hashtag buy local, create jobs, some people are typing BY local instead of BUY local. So our slogan is buy local, as in purchase local, not buy local as in buy the person. So I'm just putting that out there for those of you who might be typing BY local instead of BUY local, create jobs on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Zime, is there anything that you want to add to this conversation? You're good?
All good, thank you.
Okay. You're good, thank you. I know previously I asked a question about which wine varietal was produced in South Africa in the 1920s, and a lot of you actually got it correct. So you know your South African wines. I think the first person to get it was Margaret in the Q&A section, and the answer is Pinotage. Pinotage is the correct answer. I mean, you guys are so knowledgeable. You even spoke about who created it, when they created it, where they created it. I mean, that is very impressive. So it goes to show that Proudly South African is the way to go. And before we go into our next speaker, our second question for our game today, and I think this one's going to be a little bit easy, especially for those, once again, in the food and beverage space. But even if you're not, we've all had this treat once in our lives as South Africans. So I think this will work very, very well. Our question is, this is a uniquely South African dessert that's comprised of twisted fried dough that's drenched in golden syrup. What is the name of this dessert? I'll say it one more time. A uniquely South African dessert that's comprised of twisted fried dough that's drenched in golden syrup. What is the name of this dessert? If you don't get this one, I don't know. I question your childhood. What were you doing? How have you never tasted this particular dessert? And I'll give you a clue. I need my sisters who cook to get this one right. If you still get it wrong, then I give up on you. I've lost hope. I don't know what to say. And whilst you marinate on that question, I'd like to call up our next speaker, who's not only very accomplished in the events and marketing space and has an impressive resume, but also strangely, this is something that I found quite cool on his resume, his name rolls off your tongue. I even started singing a song with his name because I liked the way that it sounded. But I'd like to welcome onto the stage the chair of the Council of Event Professionals Africa, Mr. Rudy van der Veer. Did I say your name?
You did indeed, Lebo, and you've given me the munchies with, with your questions as well.
You're welcome to take the stage, please.
Thank you very much, Lebo. And thank you, everyone, for joining the session. I'm just quickly going to have a little bit of a chat around Council of Events Professionals Africa, as well as the need for the professionalization of the events industry as in South Africa, but as well as in Africa. So we are focused on Africa, not just South Africa. And I think two elements that stood out for me with Eustace and Nani mentioning buy local, but not only in terms of products, but also services. With events, they are inherent by their nature high-risk projects, not only in terms of physical risk, but in terms of reputational risk. And that is why there's a great need in terms of professionalization of the events industry, because as we host events in Africa and in South Africa, we effectively, both as event professionals and our events in the event itself, become ambassadors for Brand South Africa, for Brand Africa. So there's really a need for us to ensure that we firstly benchmark against international best practices and standards in terms of professionalization as an industry. But what we've done is, with our designations, we've used the international certifications and designations as a benchmark, but we've Africanized them. We haven't done a copy and paste model. We've got complexities operating in Africa and in South Africa that they don't have in other countries. But the big element for us is as well, with professionalization of the industry and creating professional designations in our events industry, it allows us to also export those talents in terms of event professionals and the services that we offer into the international space, and that we are recognized within that space. So I'm just going to go on here. There we go. So just to give you an indication of where we fit in terms of the Council of Events Professionals Africa. So we're a body that falls under, or a special interest group that falls under the larger SACIA body. And SACIA is the recognized professional body for the event and entertainment industry. So I'll show you a slide in a little while, just in terms of all the other special interest groups falling under the larger SACIA body, but specifically focused on the events industry. We've got the Council of Events Professionals Africa, which is specifically focused on event industry professionals. So that would typically be your event managers, event directors, event owners, and it spans all the genres of events, business events, entertainment, sport, all of those. Then we've also got the Event Safety Council, which is, of course, an important element with events, is the safety of the event in its totality, the event goers, concert goers, delegates, all of those elements. And then also the Technical Production Services Association. And this is also vitally important, that events are done at the highest level in terms of standards. And again, like I said, to make sure that we host world-class, well, not only world-class, but world-leading events in South Africa. Then to just give you an idea of the roles and responsibilities of a professional body, the reason why I've included this is we've got various associations across all industries in South Africa. If you look at the financial services industry, you'll have an accountants association, you'll have a financial planner association, but they are associations and not professional bodies. Now, a professional body, the difference between them and an association is a professional body provides designations. And I'd like to just use this as an example because it's very relatable. Within the financial services industry, as an example, the accounting space, even though you may have gone and studied and have a BCom accounting degree, that doesn't immediately make you a recognized accountant or a recognized financial planner or a chartered accountant. There are steps that you take after that qualification or that experience that you've gained to have a designation. So a designation and a qualification, they differ in their nature, where a qualification is something that you go study for with a tertiary education partner. You have that degree, and that remains with you for the remainder of your life. With a designation is a professional certification, if I could call it that. The nice thing about a designation is there is a need for continued professional development. So where a qualification is, I've studied it, 20 years later, I still have that content in my head that I studied 20 years ago, but it's not necessarily functional anymore because the space evolves. And especially in events, we're a very fast-moving space. So you need to remain ahead of the time in terms of your knowledge. So in terms of roles and responsibilities of a professional body versus associations, it's to promote the public understanding of and trust in professions through the establishment of the professional designations. As I've mentioned, we've benchmarked our designations against international best practices as well as standards. We work with quality councils to ensure curriculum development. So what we do as a professional body is we give feedback to the tertiary educators to ensure that their curriculum remains relevant, that the new talent we bring into the industry are up to date, are relevant as much and as far as possible. We support the development of national career advice systems, again, to create that funnel of constant new talent coming into the industry. A big one, encourage the development and implementation of continued professional development, and that is with your CPD points and accreditations. And I'm sure you'll see the correlation between the medical space, where doctors need to attend workshops, they need to attend lectures to make sure that they are abreast with the latest technology within their industry. And we're doing the exact same to professionalize the events industry. A big one again, protect the public and other clients against unethical and unprofessional behavior by designated professionals. We act as an assessment quality partner to ensure education standards. We act as a workplace provider for the delivery of learnerships, of course, with qualifications with the tertiary institutions. A lot of those students need to get on-the-job training to complete their qualifications, and we assist in that process as well. We recognize suitable education and training providers for both continued professional development as well as the original qualifications. And as mentioned, we also guide the curriculum setting of that with our tertiary education partners. And then lastly, we set and administer our own board examinations. And as I mentioned, the same way as with a chartered accountant, after you've studied, you've done your internship, you need to write your board exams. So it's the similar process that we follow with the event management side, as well as the event safety side, technical production services, in order to create a truly professionalized industry. Then just to go on here quickly to show you the makeup of SACIA as the larger body and the various bodies that fall or special interest groups that fall under SACIA. As I mentioned, SACIA is the SACWA approved body. So we are a SACWA approved body in terms of issuing the designations. Under technical production and live events, like I mentioned, we've got the Event Safety Council, the Technical Production Services Association, and the Council of Events Professionals Africa. And you'll see under each one of those, we've got various designations. Now, those designations are basically from a more entry-level designation, which would typically be your associate level. Then it goes to a practitioner level, which is your middle level. You'll see that here on the second row. And then your highly skilled, highly professional level would be a certified professional within either the safety space, the technical production, or the event management space. Then also they've got special interest groups under education and youth development, and then various special interest groups under audio, visual, broadcast, film, and video. Now, the reason I'm just showing this is with the events industry, like I said, we work with complex projects. They are highly collaborative, highly cooperative, and this gives you an idea of all of the role players that also need to work together within a typical event type of setting. Just making sure that as the event manager or as the event owner, the event producer, that you are also aware of pulling in service providers that have the right certifications and designations to ensure that we host those events at the highest level. Then just a little interesting breakup, especially leaning on our theme of the effect of events on the local economy. I think a lot of people, very often, we get so stuck into one type of event, but to give you a little bit of insight in terms of the breakdown of the different types of events and the size of that market. So a lot of us, of course, music events, they're usually front and center. They're the ones that get advertised a lot. They make up about 20% of the events market, with sport events 18%, festivals 11%, exhibitions, which as Noni also mentioned, and Eustace, around getting the brand out there, getting products out there that are proudly South African, and so forth. They make up 15%, cultural 7%, but then funny enough, the biggest side is corporate events, 24%. And that's, I think, just a little bit of interest, and we often lose sight of that big market of corporate events. Just a little quick one on the criteria for designations. So we basically work on the 4 E's of excellence: education, work experience, work ethic, and then evidence and exam. And please remain mindful of the fact that designations are not pitched as an entry level. These are for true event professionals. So these designations are based on some sort of either educational background with work experience to apply for a designation. So it's someone that's been in the industry, they've gone through a bit of work, they've worked with the companies, they've worked their way up, and they now want to be recognized as a true professional within the industry. Of course, as the Council of Events Professionals, we also work on more entry-level type of educational programs to get youth up to a certain level where they could either start studying or they could gain the experience so that they can apply for a professional designation. Just going to quickly take you through the different levels. So with a professional event management associate level, that is this one here, the first one. So in terms of education, you would need an education NQF level 5 plus a minimum of 1 year's work experience. But of course, we do know that not everyone has the ability to go and study for an event-associated tertiary education diploma or degree. So wherever the educational level is not there, we do allow people to still apply for the designation. Then they just need to have double the amount of experience if they do not have the educational component. So if you'd like to apply for an event associate certification and you don't have an NQF 5 in event management or an associated background, you'll need a minimum of 2 years experience to then apply for that designation. Of course, with all of our designations, we hold our event professionals accountable, so they have to sign and abide by the Code of Professional Ethics and Conduct. And then in terms of an examination, it's for the entry level, there's an online multiple choice examination. For the middle level, and you'll see here now the NQF goes up, the experience goes up again. If there's no NQF, that would just become 6 years of experience. They do a written examination plus a portfolio of evidence to justify their work experience within the industry. And then our highest level, which is of course our really professional event management, NQF 7 or associated qualification. If they don't have that qualification, then they just need to demonstrate 10 years of work experience within the industry. They've also got a written examination, like I said, a board exam type format, and they've got a more comprehensive portfolio of evidence that we will then review to award those designations. Just to give you an idea of the competency areas that are tested and looked at both within the portfolio of evidence as well as that's covered in the exam. And the reason why I want to show this is just to show you, as I mentioned earlier, events are a highly collaborative, highly cooperative type of space. Now, this is the knowledge that a typical event manager or event professional needs to have. They are basically guided by the main headings: administration, design, marketing, operations, risk, and other. So it is really comprehensive in terms of the knowledge that an event professional needs to have. But why I'm also showing this is this gives you a very nice indication of the economic impact of events on our local economy, because each one of these sectors, if we look at an event, needs to manage financial services. Typically, we would need either our financial statements audited, we would need an accountant service. So there's an economic impact in terms of getting staff in. If we look at from a marketing material, merchandise, as we now mentioned earlier, buy proudly South African, buy local merchandise, not merchandise necessarily produced in China. Under risk, health and safety, legal, security, we need to employ these type of people with our events. So you could almost see each one of these individual blocks as an area for local economy stimulation. Then I'm just showing you a quick look at the event safety competency matrix. So this is, of course, a lot more targeted around event safety, where your event manager needs to have a universal understanding of event safety. But typically your event manager or your event professional in that sense would then employ a competent event safety officer who will be skilled in these various areas. Technical production competency matrix, again, there you will see their areas of competency. And again, this is where your event manager has an overview. They understand the production services side, but your technical production services specialist would be completely competent in these competency areas. Then just to bring it home in terms of how do events boost the local economy. And what I've done is I've just taken a small example, because we're so used to events going to Cape Town, going to Johannesburg, it's the large events. But just having a look and giving you a little bit of a taste of what an event like the Half Ironman, it's not even a full Ironman, of course, an international acclaimed event, held in a small town like Mossel Bay on the 6th of November last year. Just to show you what that event brought into the economy of a small town like Mossel Bay. In terms of direct spend, just over 58 million rand in terms of direct spend that one event brings into a small town like Mossel Bay. Total visitors were 2,694. That's the registered athletes. Each athlete had an average of about 3.2, so let's call it 3 supporters that came with. The total overnight stays in terms of hotel stays that was created with the event was 36,396. And as I mentioned, a direct spend of just over 58 million rand in Mossel Bay as a small town with an average spend of 1,600 rand per person per day. And here again, I'm going to close off with the need for us to professionalize the industry. If we host these type of events, they are seen on an international scale. The events become ambassadors for South Africa. Us as event professionals become ambassadors for South Africa. And this was the first year, last year, that the Half Ironman was held in Mossel Bay. And I think as South Africa, we could be very proud that we ranked 3rd highest on the satisfaction rating by the athletes worldwide for Ironman events. And you'll see here on the figures, it's literally by point something that we missed out on the US and Australia. But US and Australia have hosted the event previously in the same town. So I think it does attest to what we can do in Africa. I think we often sell ourselves short. We can not only host world-class events, but world-leading events. And that's it from my side. Lebo?
Thank you, Rudy. That was a great presentation. And, you know, I loved how you ended it off by saying that events are ambassadors for the country, right? So it actually calls for people to have a global mindset when they're creating the events because the world is watching. So that term, Africa, the time is now, is honest, it's real. Everybody's watching Africa. What are we showing them? What are we going to do? So thank you for that.
Our second half. It's our second half.
It's our second half, exactly. It's our second half. And your presentation spoke to that concept of it's our second half. What I also loved was that, you know, from the outside looking in, it's very easy to think that the events industry is incredibly informal and you just have to want to create an event to be in it. But what I've learned from your presentation is that being part of organizations like SEPA, for example, allows us to have quality control measures. And it allows us to create a certain standard of the industry that we can package and sell somewhere else, that we can also show to the world that this is what South Africa stands for. So I really love that. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, Lebo.
Thank you guys for interacting with the session so far. I really loved your answers. I checked the Q&A session and I know a lot of you have questions for Noni and for Eustace and for Rudy as well. And we will be answering these questions at the end of the presentations. We have one more presentation left. Before we go into that, thank you for amplifying this event online at Proudly SA on Twitter, at proudly.sa on Instagram, and Proudly South African on Facebook. Our hashtag, our very controversial hashtag, is hashtag Buy Local, Create Jobs. Buy Local, B-U-Y, local, create jobs. And the answer to our question that I asked before our session, and the question was, a uniquely South African dessert that's comprised of twist fried dough that's drenched in golden syrup. What is the name of this dessert? The answer is obviously a Koeksisterd. I think 90%, 99% of the people who answered that question got it right. We did get 2 very strange answers. One was waffle and the other one was custard. I don't know where those come from, but that's the beauty of diversity. Our next speaker, I think a lot of you, actually no, our next speaker is Lloyd before Precious, or are we moving it around? Oh, it's still Lloyd. Okay, awesome. So before we continue with the game, I think I'll ask it before Precious's presentation, but before this speaker, I think we need to just get into it because they've got a lot to share. The next speaker there's a lot that we can learn from the next speaker. He successfully built what we can easily describe as one of the biggest food and music event assets in Africa. He is the founder of Delicious International Food and Music Festival, Mr. Lloyd Cornwall. And he's coming to us from the virtual streets of San Francisco. Lloyd, the stage is yours.
Thank you, guys. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for the invite. And I've been listening to, obviously, everything that everybody's been saying so far. And, you know, the theme of buying local starts with us. It starts with us as human beings. It starts with thinking local. And I loved what Rudy was sharing. I think all young event entrepreneurs need to go and sign up to these bodies, because even if they're just filling in forms, they're learning about events. I came from overseas with my skill set. So, you know, the whole local thing, I think it starts with us as people. And I'm going to give a strange example of that. I find it quite offensive when I'm in a South African restaurant and they bring me a glass bottle of water that has been brought in from overseas. I think it's poor restaurant management. I think it's poor territory management. I think it's poor planetary management, because, you know, if I'm in a restaurant, I don't want to drink a bottle of water that's come all the way across from Europe, usually Italy, on a cargo ship, burning oil, burning diesel to get it to me. And then I don't want to give people jobs in a small town in Italy when we've got a lot of people here that need jobs locally. A good example of that is I'm currently in the Eastern Cape. So this morning, I don't know whether you can see it, I went and bought a bottle of water at the petrol station, and I particularly chose Tutsi Kama spring water because it's local. It's from down the road. And I think that the whole buy local thing is a muscle. And when we go to the gym and we pump iron, we build our muscles up. And buying local and thinking local is a muscle that we need to flex in the event industry. We need to work harder as event owners to support local suppliers. Another good example of that is at Delicious, we used somewhere in the region of 15 kilometers of white picket fencing to section off different areas. Now, we could have hired that from one of the great big event organizers, but we didn't. We had a guy at the side of the road. You may all know him. He's in Kailami at the top of Main Road. And when you cut onto, I think it's the Woodmead Road, there's a whole woodworking section. There's loads of people there making the most incredible things. We approached that guy and said, could you make us 15 kilometers of white picket fence? And his eyes were like saucers. Yes, I can. When do you need it? I said, well, you've got about 8 months. And he was over the moon. And I can assure you, all he did for the next 8 months was make white picket fencing for us. But that revenue went back into his community. And, you know, obviously that's how we make an impact as event owners. So I think, you know, we're talking about the whole, you know, think local thing. Obviously, Delicious Festival is huge. We employ hundreds of people. I think on event weekend, we've got about 3,500 people employed, which is wonderful. And we do have a shortage of skilled people within the event industry. So this is where, you know, what Rudy was saying is so important. People need to go and get trained. So when we hire a runner, that guy is trained as a runner. That makes our life easier, and the opportunities are there. I also want to talk very briefly about the government support in South Africa, because in my experience, the support that we've had from government is better than anywhere in the world. And we operate a business which is quite global. People like Noni have been with us from the beginning, and we've had to change how we put on an event to meet Noni's expectations in order to get investment and political will and support from such organizations. They work incredibly hard, but you've got to be willing to think the way they think and do the things they want you to do. And sometimes as an event owner, it might be cheaper for me to get it from somewhere else. But we need to work harder as event organizers to buy the local products, to give the local job opportunities to people. A lot of these big events that come into South Africa, obviously, when, you know, a Justin Bieber concert comes into South Africa, a lot of that revenue goes back to Justin Bieber and his camp in America. And I think, you know, what we've seen with Delicious, more and more and more, it's the local artists that are having the greatest impact on the crowd. It's the local food suppliers that are having the great impact on the crowd. It's all the local stuff. We've got so much. And I speak as a British-born man that is South African by choice. So I choose to live here in South Africa and operate my business and my family from here. I've got a passport. I could leave tomorrow. So I'm very patriotic when it comes to the South African event economy. And, you know, there's this, you know, how do I get help from the government? the organizations that we've got around Delicious Festival, proudly South Africa being one of them, Gauteng Events Authority, which is Noni's department, is another one of those departments, the Department of Tourism. These guys really do work hard to deliver on their mandate, which is to create more events, but to make sure that we use the local economy. So I think, you know, as an event owner, and all I can tell all the people that are watching here, if you build your event with that kind of ethos, and you build the DNA into your event where you're going to benefit local people as much as you possibly can, even in some instances, it's going to cost you a bit more money. And I'm going to use the toilet roll example, which is a bit of a strange subject to touch on. We use nearly 70,000 rolls of loo roll at Delicious Festival. I could save a little bit of money by getting it from a great big American supplier, Kimberly-Clark, or one of these great big guys. Obviously, they can do it a little bit cheaper than the little guys, but we get ours locally. We get ours from a factory in Kaya Sands in Randburg. And I know when we place our order of 70,000 loo rolls for Delicious, it makes a difference in people's lives. It has to come from us. We have to think this way in order to make those decisions. So I think thinking local on a macro level is one thing, but thinking local on a personal level is how we force change. I am offended if I sit in a restaurant, maybe this afternoon, and they bring me a bottle of water that has been shipped from the other side of the world in a glass bottle. The carbon footprint alone on that bottle of water is not something I want to be involved with. Secondly, the people that are getting the jobs bottling that water, and the economic impact is going to a town in Italy across the other side of the world. And right now, that isn't within my mandate to support that. It's my mandate to support the local suppliers. So I really do believe it starts with us. I run a huge organization with Delicious Festival, but the ethos of the business has to start with us. And the more, and I'm sure we've got lots of people watching here that want to be in events. I would encourage them to work with the organizations like Rudy has just outlined, which is critically important. We have a skill set shortage in this country. There are huge opportunities in events in this country, but you've got to get skilled, you've got to get licensed, you've got to get registered. And then if you want to create your own event, think what is going to make people like Noni want to get involved with your event. Are you supporting inbound tourism? Are you supporting local goods manufacture? Are you supporting local people? Are you showcasing this product suite to the rest of the world? So I think, you know, for me, and I don't want to waffle on too long, I would welcome any questions that anybody's got to ask about Delicious and how we've managed to build what we've built. But what's important for me to say, you can't build it on your own. You need the support of the agencies, some of which are in the room now, proudly South Africa and Noni's department, who have been incredible and more supportive than any organizations anywhere in any of the other territories we operate. So the help is there, the support is there, but you've got to make changes to how you think in order to attract the support that you need to make events successful in this country. And that starts with you. It cannot start outside of you. Start thinking that way, and then when you're talking to these agencies and building your event concepts, you'll already be talking their language because you've built it into your DNA. And I think, you know, for Delicious Festival, we bring, you know, thousands of tourists from all over the world. We work with local inbound tour operators to make sure that that tourist gets his flight, he gets picked up from the airport by a guy in a van, he gets taken to the hotel, he spends his money in the hotel on food and drinks and tips, he then gets that van back to the festival, he spends his money in the festival. All of this money goes to the local economy. But it starts with us as the people that put the actual budget together. And I must admit, in some instances, it's a little bit more expensive to do the right thing. But doing the right thing in the long term will benefit the growth of the industry, will benefit the economy, and it will keep the money flowing from the organizations that we're so lucky to have around us to do that. So I think my 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 parting shot here, and the thought I'd just like to leave everyone is with, it starts with us. It starts with us as human beings, and it starts with us when we're sitting in a restaurant ordering our water for the table. And if it starts there, then that is a muscle. And if you keep working that muscle, you will keep thinking bigger, and you will start questioning everything that you do in the industry, and you will make sure that your event benefits the local economy. And Delicious, I mean, I in terms of work days, I mean, you know, tens of thousands of work days are created. The over 78% of our budget is spent on local product. In fact, the only part of our budget that isn't spent on local supply chain is the international artists. And as we've seen over the years, the local artists and the local food are far more are far better received by the audiences than the international stuff nowadays. So we've got so much to be proud of. We've got such amazing culture. We're surrounded by the most amazing government agencies that really get the vision and that are really sticking to their mandate. But it starts with us. And if people can start thinking that way, and if it starts with them with a simple thing like ordering, which bottle of water would you like at your table? Well, I'd like one that came from 15 kilometers down the road, please. That's where it starts. It's a muscle. Start flexing the muscle in everything that you do. And I believe this economy, and I believe this event economy has only just begun. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy, for a very passionate presentation. I really like what you had to say, because it brings it down to a practical level. Each one of us, whether we are in the events industry or not, can play a part in encouraging businesses to be more proudly South African. You know, what are we ordering? Where are we going? What are we accepting? So I love that you said buy local is a muscle and a mindset. I really love the mindset part of it. And you said thinking local on a personal level is how we create change. That's so important, because when we come to these conversations, a lot of people are thinking about government organizations and who can help us and the bigger picture. But what about the small things, you know, the small changes that you can make, atomic habits that you can make, so that you can actually see an incremental
it has to start with individual habits, because it's like a muscle. And if you start flexing that muscle on a daily basis and you keep doing it and you keep doing it, that muscle's going to get bigger. And that mindset is going to expand, and you're going to continue to grow your business. And if you continue to grow your business the right way, you will attract the support you need to make it successful. But it starts with us on a human level with everything that we do.
I love what you're saying. And I actually summarized it by saying you're speaking about long-term wealth creation over short-term profit gain. You know, so you're asking us to think in the long-term perspective. It's a long game, because we all need to gain from it. And that's not going to happen today, but it will happen over time with those atomic habits and that mindset of what can I do as an individual to make the change. Thank you for that. I really love that. Very inspiring. And it made us all think about what we can do to make the change. So I really love that. Guys, thank you for participating online with this conversation. I'm loving what people are saying. If you want to take part in the conversation on Facebook, you can find us at Proudly South African, on Twitter at Proudly South African, Proudly SA, on Instagram, proudly.sa with the hashtag Buy Local Create Jobs. And we've got one last presentation for the morning before we get into our Q&A session. And before we go into that, I've got one last question from our quiz. This should be the easiest one of the morning, but this is how it goes. It's said that this dried meat snack was created by voortrekkers looking for a way to preserve food during the Great Trek. What is the name of this snack? Let me say it one more time. It is said that this dried meat snack was created by voortrekkers looking for a way to preserve food during the Great Trek. What is the name of this snack? While you ruminate on that, let me introduce our fifth speaker. Our fifth and final speaker is a woman who's not only managed to build a successful international events company, but has also crafted a potent brand online that is influencing future generations in the events industry. Please welcome the founder of Precious Celebrations, Precious Mazibuko. Precious, the stage is yours.
Hi, Lebo. Thank you so much. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Sure. After that introduction, with 15 minutes with my topic, I'm really grateful to have this platform to discuss something that's really close to my heart. And one of those things is making sure that up and coming talent and event planners that want to get into the industry, knowing the importance of having that experience and building up your skills. So our previous speakers touched a lot on that, and having the opportunity to speak at various conferences that are not even in South Africa, I always get to realize how, the downside of our industry not being so regulated, especially for the private event sector, is quite a concerning, situation that we find ourselves in. And as you mentioned, a lot of people might know my brand or me because of how important the digital space is in the world that we live in right now. And most of the time, the disadvantages of that is, up and coming talent looks at it as a very easy thing to get into, because, I think a lot of times we do make it look easy. And in turn, a lot of the up and coming talent think it's that easy. But one of the things I like saying when I have the opportunity to inspire or talk to event planners that want to get into the industry is the importance of getting experience. And that doesn't mean that you rush or getting into being an entrepreneur. It does look very, interesting. You have your own time, you can make your own decisions, but trust me, 12 years in, it's still one of the hardest things that you can do. You work harder as an entrepreneur when you work for yourself than actually being an employee. So I always say one of the skills and just that business savvy mind and knowing that running a business and having a passion for something is totally different things. You can run a business that you really love, but there's so much that goes into running an actual business that is profitable. And with the beauty of what we create and the experiences that we create for clients, it may look like the main focus is about what the outcome is, but there's so much that goes into it. And it always pains me when I speak to young entrepreneurs that they actually don't make a profit. And that takes having the experience of knowing that, running a business or an event business, there's so much that goes into it. You have so many people that are on your books that create and bring the outcome of having a successful event. So never take the opportunity of being an employee in a corporate space, or if you work for another event company that has more resources and or an internal department at a big brand. You learn so much just by being on the other side, so that when you get to be your own boss and you run your own business, you know what goes into it, and you know what mistakes not to make, and what it actually takes to be on the other side of being a client and not being a supplier. So, just the 12 years that I've been doing this and running my business, only after 5 or 6 years, to be honest, is when I realized that actually I'm running a business. But before that, there's so much that clouds, everyone's mind. You want to get busy. And sometimes getting busy, you don't realize that your books are actually not balancing. Or you try to do everything yourself and you just disregard the point that actually to run a business, if you have a team that works with you, do you have all the right paperwork for that? Are you registered to make sure that if you have freelancers or permanent staff, are you care in terms of just if they decide to go somewhere else, you are in a good position to not find yourself in hot waters. Small things like that, entrepreneurs in our industry don't even look at it. But more so because it's mostly one of my passion areas and what I focus on, which is private clients, because my experience, I dealt a lot with corporate events. And when I got into the industry, I did want to find a niche that I'll focus on that still provides a professional service, but focus more on private clients. But just, the impact of what the event industry, contributes to the economy in South Africa, it's massive. And it always boggles my mind just, you know, how much job creation we actually, you know, contribute to the economy, from just creatives to craftsmanship to so many legs that bring a whole, you know, celebration or experience together. And having to, you know, see the feedback and just what international clients that come into our country and the difference that they see in the offering that us as South Africans have compared to, you know, international markets. It's something that, you know, sometimes as you work, you know how, you know, influential or inspirational the way we work and how we produce events is so different compared to other countries. And I always feel like, you know, being proudly South African, it's one of those things that is a great selling point for us. The experience, the food. So when one is thinking of, you know, starting their own business, it's not just about the beautiful outcome. It's, you have to think long term of, you know, how your longevity for your business. You know, it's not just about now the next client. And I always, you know, encourage, you know, entrepreneurs coming into the industry as well, the importance of making sure that you have return clients. You know, your one event that you'll put together for the first time, just realize there's so many people that are in that space that could potentially be your clients. That because of what you put together, the way you do it professionally, in the right way, being very transparent, being very ethical in the way you run your business, it's not hard for a potential client to see that, you know, in the way you run an event. And potentially in 2 or 3 years' time, that could be someone that comes back and says, you know, I experienced one of your events and I saw how you ran the event. And, you know, the referral was, you know, everything was done so professionally. And just like that, you don't have to worry about where business is coming from. Excuse me.
I think Precious is experiencing a few technical difficulties, and that happens in the digital age that we're living in. So before she goes back on and she's fixing her technical difficulties, I'll just give you the answer for our final question of our quiz, which was, what is one of the fried, I think it was the dried meat products that were created by the Voortrekkers in order to preserve food? It's a snack. And the answer is biltong. I mean, anyone who would get that wrong, I would have to look at your Proudly South African membership and ask you where you got it, because how do you not know? Biltong as a South African. I think Precious has finally resolved her technical problems or challenges. So let's get back to her presentation. Precious, over to you.
I'm back. Apologies for that. As you know, as event planners, we're always on the road. So a lot can change in a split second. So apologies. So as I was saying, in terms of just, you know, understanding the importance of knowing that, you know, experience is so, you know, beneficial for running a successful business. And also, you know, the point that I was making before I got cut off, that your next potential client could literally be from your last event. And referrals and just by word of mouth is the best way that you can build a brand. And a lot of times people just, you know, assume it's that easy and it happens overnight. And, you know, the reality of it is it doesn't. There's a lot that goes into it, and you need to make sure that you upskill yourself. You stay up, you know, up to date with current trends, you know, challenge yourself. But one of the things that really is close to my heart as well is, you know, understanding that creating a unique, you know, market for yourself is the recipe for staying power. You know, because of the digital world we live in, people just have access to a lot of things, and you find people just going, I can do this, copy paste. And I always encourage that, try find your own, you know, sound, find your own, you know, niche in the market that will make you stand out. And once you find that, that's where the magic is. You know, it's not just about this industry that is booming and seems like it's very interesting and easy to get into. And the reality is it's not easy at all. It's one of the most hardest jobs, challenging, that you sacrifice so much of your own personal time to make other people, honestly happy. And it takes quite a lot. And once a lot of people get into it and they realize how much work is really, in this industry, then they realize actually it's not as easy as it looks. And only a few people can, stay in and realize passion sometimes, overweighs, the staying power of running a business. So, never just think it's that easy. When you arm yourself with experience and skills, once then you take that leap of faith and you say, I'm getting into this industry, you're going in armed with experience. And being an employee is really amazing. Someone else is paying to upskill you and give you all the experience so that when you do take that risk to run a business and contribute to the economy, you're doing it knowing that you're armed and you don't have any doubts. And it's not easy, and it doesn't mean it's going to be an overnight success, but it gives you, the strength and that opportunity to go in it knowing that it takes a while, but you're going to stick to it and, make sure your business succeed. I think I've covered the points that I wanted to talk about with my 15 minutes. But anyone that's listening to the webinar that wants to get into the industry, or they're doubting if they want to stay, please just get as much experience and skills as you can, whether from fellow, planners that have been in the industry for long, or in the corporate space where you are internally getting that experience and being on the other side, being a client and suppliers. You get to see so much of what goes into actually running an event business.
Thank you for such a beautiful presentation, Precious. And you handled it very well, even though you are in the streets or on the road, we literally can't tell because you've got so much poise. It's as if you're in a boardroom or something. So thank you so much for your presentation. And the key takeaways I got from it was your next potential client could be from your last event. And then you said word of mouth is potent. I don't think people really understand the value of relationships and how your one gig actually promotes you to your prospective customers. Like everywhere you go, you could always be showing something to a prospective customer. So you need to be careful about how you show up. I really love that message. And then you said people need to stay up to date with current trends. I think a lot of the time the mistake that people make sometimes, stakeholders in the events industry, is thinking that they can sell the same thing over and over and over again and people won't tell. But people are living in a global community, and a digital one at that. So they're exposed to trends every single day. And I think that point that you made is so important. I think people realize how important it is. And the last one that you said was, find your niche, find your unique positioning so that you can stand out and have a long-lasting career. We're about to get into the Q&A session, right? And I want to start that session with you because I really love that point about finding your niche. How does somebody find their niche in the events industry? What does it mean to find your niche?
Sure, I feel like it's kind of one of the first topics, and a few people that are in the industry for this long, it's one of the first things if I have a master class I mention. So I think for me, it stems from just, when you strategize your business and you put a vision board together for where you see yourself in terms of, where you want to stand or position yourself in the industry, what kind of client you want to service, how far outside of South Africa you want to service clients. And you just, narrow that down to a few points, and it doesn't hurt. I think one of the things that I learned from the beginning, I got a business coach right before I started and, left the corporate world, because it is a scary move to take. And just maybe talking it out to someone that has no interest in the success of your business, who you are,
Okay, I think Precious is having more technical challenges because she is on the road. Rudy, your camera's on. Do you want to add to this conversation about how does a person find their niche in the events industry?
Thank you, Lebo. Yeah, and I'm going to lead on to what Precious said. I think the big thing is experience. You've got to try it to read. I mean, you can read books, people can tell you, but they're going to tell you from their perspective, from their experience. Some people love doing academic conferences. It's something that's very structured. It's, I want to say, in certain senses, a bit more controllable. So they like that aspect. I can just imagine with Precious, especially on luxury wedding. I mean, that is a whole different ballgame. To manage the perceptions, and there you've got a big emotional connection to the event as well. So you really need to be a people's person. So I think personally, a big thing would be experience. Go and try it. Work in that space, and that's one thing that we also see with a lot of youth coming through the industry is. Unfortunately, the first perception about events is, oh, it's glitz and glamour. I'm going to be on the red carpet. I'm going to be in front of the camera, those type of things. And what I always say to them is just realize we're not the ones walking on the red carpet. We're the ones making sure that the red carpet doesn't have a crease in so that no one trips over it. That's our job. So for me and for my team, generally, I think the beauty of events is taking that 30 minutes, going and standing backstage, going and standing at the back of a conference room, having a look at people networking, people smiling, people connecting, what you've created. It's very often a thankless job in the sense that a lot of people at the event never know your name, they don't know who you are, but you've got that confidence and that give back in terms of what you've created from an experience point of view. So in short, I think the best way to find your niche is experience, try it, see it, and then develop your skills from there.
What a lot of people don't know is that Rudy is actually also a chartered marketer. So you know a lot about the marketing behind finding your niche. I would take his advice and run with it. As a marketer myself, that's what I tell people as well. Experience helps you discover and unearth your niche. You don't create a niche, you uncover it, you discover it. That was great advice. Lloyd, I see your camera's on. Do you also want to hop onto this conversation?
Yeah, my input on that is I've done a lot of work on my purpose and my purpose as a human being on this planet. And my purpose, my core purpose is to spread love and joy. Now, that I only realized when I was a little bit older and I was able to afford myself the time to take these dives into self. But, you know, my career started putting on club events for 200 people. And, you know, I was in London and I was putting on a club event. But the point was I booked a great DJ and everybody danced and they had a great night and it was spreading love and joy. Now that's grown and grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. But what I do at Delicious, when I get paid when I stand behind the stage and I watch the crowd roar and I can see everybody's having the best day of their life, that's how I make bank. Because my purpose is to spread love and joy. Now, it's an extension of the soul. It's an extension of me. And that's why I keep bringing this conversation back today. It starts with us. So if you love spreading love and joy, you need to be putting on events. Start small. Start with 20 people. Organize a braai. You can start right there. And then organize a bigger braai. And then organize an even bigger one. And then organize the biggest braai that's ever been had in the country. You know, it's about purpose. And if you love spreading love and joy and seeing people have a good time, you should be in events. And you have to start somewhere. And if it means, you know, doing a braai for 20 people and charging them $50 each to get in, and you make $200 profit, fantastic. Start there.
I love that. Start there. It starts with the little things. That's a great
Starts with us.
It starts with us. That's the theme of today.
Everything starts with us.
Everything starts with us. I also have another question before we go into all the other questions. And the question is, how important is the use of digital tools like social media in creating a proudly South African narrative and building proudly South African brands and businesses? I think both of you can answer it.
Fundamental, absolutely fundamental. And I mean, I came from an era where you promoted events with flyers And I wish I had a rand for every flyer I put on a car outside a nightclub, walking from nightclub to nightclub to nightclub, postering posters under bridges in the middle of the night with a dustbin full of wallpaper paste and a broom, putting posters up, and then a week later someone else has put posters over them, so you've got to do it again. But there's 5 nightclubs on the way to the next bridge, and you can put a flyer on every single car. I came from there. So I understand every aspect of my business, and the social media and the digitization of people's lives has made it easier. It's also made it more confusing. So, but the great thing about these digital platforms is that you can measure what happens when you do certain things. So no longer are we left with the question, half my advertising works and half of it doesn't. I just don't know which half. You know, that's the old adage in analog advertising. You'll never know which half is working, so you've got to do it all. But what the digitization and the social media, the sort of the metrics and the metadata have been able to give us is, when you did this, that happened. So it's very easy to work out return on investment. I boosted that post with 1,000 rand, and 12 people bought a ticket from it. So I can say, okay, well, let's amp that up and do 20,000 rand, and then 500 people will buy a ticket. So the digitization has given us the ability to measure what we do that we never had before. But I still believe it's part of a mix. And good news travels fast. So again, the local suppliers, if they're all happy and they're getting paid, they're happy, they're spreading good vibes. If the food traders are all happy and they're amazing and they're making amazing food, they're spreading good news. So again, it all starts with us again.
The concurrent theme of our webinar, it starts with us.
Right here.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Lebo, I think, and Lloyd puts it brilliantly. Look, at the end of the day, in events, we're creating experiences. And I think we mustn't forget that we've got so many role players. It's not just, if you take a concert as an example, it's not just an experience or a festival for the concert goer. It's an experience for your vendor, your food vendor that you're bringing in. What is their experience? You're helping a small business by giving them a platform. So, and that links into the digitalization. I think it's also, if you want to create an experience, as soon as we're talking about creating experience, there's some sort of emotional connection. So you need to understand your audience. You need to understand your concert goer or your delegate. You need to understand your vendor, your supplier. As Lloyd mentioned, good news travels. If you help those small businesses, the word's going to spread. Your event's doing good. If your concert goers have a brilliant experience, the word's going to spread. So it's really about creating that experience, but being mindful. And we've all seen Fire Festival, I'm sure, on Netflix. We've all seen the resurgence of Woodstock. As soon as it became about money and not about what Lloyd mentioned, that purpose of spreading love, joy, creating an experience, the event fell over. We lost sight of what the true objective is, what our passion is, and what we want to create.
Thank you for that. And Fire Festival is such a great example of what not to do. You know, when you create an event without purpose, it will eventually crumble. There's no longevity in that. So Eustace, I have a question for you from Litabo Pahlane. She says, I hear Mr. Eustace mention that Proudly SA will be launching a digital store in the coming months. Seeing how quick the digital environment is evolving, will we also be able to pay with digital currency, such as Bitcoin, Ripple, and others on the South African and British-based Luno platform?
We are still exploring the payment gateway first to be used, and based on that exercise that our team is currently busy with, we will then be able to determine what will work best. I mean, some suggestions have come in for lay-by kind of payment system to be brought into place. Some have spoken about how do you utilize, Bitcoins and currencies like that. So those questions have come up, and we do have a team that is working on that. So in due course, when we do launch the platform, we'll announce what methods will be applicable for paying for South African-made products and services. I mean, what we are definitely going to be guided by is the need to ensure that we can get South African products in the hands of anyone and everyone who's able to afford to. And so I think all of those will be considered.
Thank you for your answer, Eustace. I hope, Letabo, that was a sufficient answer. And if you need more information, don't be afraid to contact Proudly SA, even on social media. They do have a very active social media team that does answer everybody's questions. So don't be afraid to extend that conversation online after the webinar. The next question is for Noni, and it's from Margaret Mouton. I think that's how you say her surname. It says, does Johannesburg Convention Bureau and GTA bid process operate separately? Noni? Is Noni there? Okay, I think Noni might be experiencing some technical difficulties as well. Is there anyone else who can answer this question? The other question is also, how can we apply for the bidding process for a mega event in Johannesburg? Lloyd, maybe you could give some insight on that as well.
Can you just ask the question again?
How can we apply for the bidding process for a mega event in Johannesburg?
Okay, that's one for Noni. And I mean, all of their websites are open 24 hours. You go onto the websites, you look at what events they've got RFPs for, you find the event that matches yours, and you fill in the forms.
Noni, could you please add to that conversation? She's here.
Starts with you.
Noni, are you there? It seems there's a time lag for when she can get on. Noni, are you there? Should we give her a few more seconds? Because there are a few questions about bidding. Okay, we'll get back to that.
Maybe just
I can try and help.
Yeah, I can jump in quickly from a National Convention Bureau perspective, and it's very similar with your regional convention bureaus. So what they've got is they've got a bid support document that you basically complete, and this is especially focused on bringing international events, and I'm talking now with the convention bureaus, because the convention bureaus are heavily focused on bringing international events, and it's more business events to South Africa. So I'm specifically referring to the conferencing, exhibition, those type of space. So they've got a bid support document that you complete. It's quite comprehensive in terms of different areas, the potential economic impact, the bed nights created, what are the international visitors as opposed to visitors from Africa, as opposed to local visitors. So they look at the holistic approach of the event. What is the economic impact? And then they've got different sectors where they offer support. So it's from a certain amount of marketing support. They offer support on site inspections for those international clients to come to South Africa to look at the different venue options, those type of things. They also then offer support in terms of marketing, delegate boosting for the event. So they've got certain, I want to say, sub-criteria and sub-measures with allocated rand values that they do then offer support. But they do have the documents, as Lloyd mentioned, it's generally available on their website. And you can either go through the National Convention Bureau, which is of course looking at South Africa in totality, or your regional bureaus, such as Wesgro. The Convention Bureau sits under Wesgro for Western Cape, with Noni for Gauteng. KZN's got their own Convention Bureau. But again, here, I think it's also have a look at where your event would be most functional in terms of hosting it. Don't try and force it just because, oh, I'm going to get support from them. It also needs to be functional for that area, and it needs to be a collaboration between the respective convention bureau, as well as yourself as the event organizer, and then that the international client that you're wanting to bring into South Africa. I don't know if you want to add on to that, perhaps, Lloyd.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, Noni, thank you for joining.
Okay, I had everything.
Is that intentional?
Yeah, I try to, I think that's why when my camera is on, I can't connect properly, but I will try and see if I can be
there
visible.
We go, we can see.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, so Rudy is right, but that is on the meetings and conferencing and exhibition side of things, especially in the meeting side of things. When it comes to lifestyle events, it's a different ballgame altogether. You find that if it's what we call a national event, you will find that national also gets involved, depending on how you do your proposal. But if it is a regional event, on the lifestyle ones, then you've got different processes. In Gauteng, as Lloyd has said, you've got a request for proposal system where you can submit your proposal and it closes, and then you get supported. So when it comes to international events, the process that Rudy has explained and the bidding process that Rudy has explained happens in that particular way. There's a difference between the Gauteng, which is the GTA Gauteng process, and the Johannesburg process. Johannesburg Tourism have their own process, and Gauteng Tourism have their own process. They are almost similar, but they are not the same. We've got a standardized process. National and other people have a process whereby you can submit your proposal maybe anytime, and then they can evaluate it and come back to you. On our side, there's a standard time where everyone submits, we close, we evaluate, and then we allocate on the side of event management, on the side of lifestyle events. And then on the conferencing side, it happens the way Rudy has said, where as and when you receive that, then you submit.
Thank you for that answer. A lot of people have also asked how they can get in touch with you or your organization.
Okay, I will give my email on the chat, and then they can get hold of me in that particular way, and then we'll take it from there. I'll also give a contact for our like a generic contact that is always available to refer on the chat again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Noni. I think there's a lot that people are learning from you, and that's why you're getting all the questions and they want your email address. But guys, our Zoom is almost over and I can only ask one more question. So I'm going to ask a question that all the judges, I think, can answer. You don't have to, judges, but you're welcome to. And the question is from Tolagale, and she asks, what would be your response to the general assertion that events management industry is overcrowded? Who wants to take that one?
I can take that one.
Okay.
I don't think it's overcrowded. You have to know your niche. I don't think it's overcrowded. I really think that I always say when you look at the party planners, we might think there are many, but they specialize differently. You know, even with events, there's no other delicious. There can be a music event category, but there's no other delicious.
Thank you, Noni.
That is my answer.
I love that.
I don't think it's overcrowded. I think the human capital opportunity in this country is amazing. We just need to have the training facilities to get these guys to a basic skill set that they become employable by us. There's no point me having a runner who is on site and I'm paying him R1,000 a day. And when I say, go and get me a long weight, he doesn't know what a long weight is. He's going to go, I need the guy to know what that is. I need him to know where to get it and bring it back to me. So, there needs to be a certain layer of basic entry level skills for somebody that could work for myself or Noni or Rudy or Eustace, any of the people here. We need people on events, and there is a massive shortage right now of skilled event professionals. And the same is happening to our industry as what happens to the medical industry. Most of, COVID had a huge impact on our event professionals. Most of the team that I used to operate Delicious with pre-COVID are now working in the Middle East because they've all gone there and the Middle East is exploding. In fact, the Middle East it's the event economy that is driving the tourism economy and is driving the whole of the Middle East. If you look at the size of the events that they're putting on there. Now, what's happened is a lot of our event professionals have gone there. That has left a vacuum here in this territory where we can't find staff, we can't find runners, we can't find riggers, we can't find lighting technicians. A lot of our suppliers have got their own training programs. For example, Gearhouse, who we work with extensively, have got an academy. You can go to Gearhouse and you can learn to become a rigger or a lighting tech or a sound engineer. They'll even give you accommodation and a food allowance if you sign up for the 2-year course. And then once you've done your 2-year course, you go and work for Gearhouse on events like ours. I totally disagree with the statement. I think this is the land of opportunity for human beings and event professionals and events themselves. We have a shortage. We have the opposite problem. We have the antithesis of overcrowding. We have a vacuum.
Okay, so I love that you're saying we don't have overcrowding. What we do have is a skills deficit. Essentially,
we have a skills deficit. We have a skills deficit.
What are your thoughts?
Thanks, Lebo. I fully agree with both Noni and Lloyd on that. And 100%, I mean, Lloyd put it perfectly. We've got a vacuum. We definitely have a skills deficit. And it is, like I said earlier, it's based on a little bit of perception, because we do see some youth coming into the industry. It's not what they expected. It's not glamorous. It's actually really hard work. I mean, as event professionals, it's not office hours. Saturdays on Saturdays. You don't have weekends, those type of things. So you do need a passion for it. But it's a beautiful, if you find that passion, it's a beautiful industry to be in. Definitely a skills deficit. Just to give you a little bit of feedback, we are working as CIFA, the Council of Events Professionals, obviously with our designations being more on the high-end professional side. We are working with regional governmental tourism clusters to look at training projects that we can get youth into the industry, upskill them with those basic entry level knowledge, to start as riggers, to start as those, and work your way up from an experience base into the industry. And then I think, just as a last one, in terms of the overcrowding element, is I think that the perception is people want to do the same event. So, oh yeah, I want to do the Delicious Festival. I can see that the Delicious Festival does well, so I want to do the same type of thing. Be innovative. If you are innovative in the event space, there's a plethora of opportunities. I mean, it's a blank canvas. There's so much that you can do, but don't try to imitate. Be innovative.
I love that. What a great way to end this conversation. Don't try to imitate. Be innovative. Everyone, we have reached the end of our session. Please be advised that you can find this session after today on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. We've been live streaming this. We've taken a lot of content of it, so you definitely can experience this conversation post the conversation. All you have to do is follow Proudly SA on Twitter, proudly.sa on Instagram, Proudly South African on Facebook, with the hashtag Buy Local to Create Jobs. This was a highly informative session. We've had people on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook just saying we've learned so much, we want more. So thank you to our speakers for giving their time and their knowledge and their intellect to this conversation. For me, it was incredibly invaluable. Eustace, you have your camera on. Do you want to say something, or may I continue?
I just wanted to thank you for for helping us with facilitating the program. But also to thank all our guests, Lloyd Cornwall, Rudy van der Vyver, Noni Kubeka, and Precious. And I see we've lost Precious due to connection. But thank you very much to all the friends of Proudly South African. We call them friends of Proudly South African, who were able to avail themselves today to help us navigate through this important conversation that will contribute to the growth of the economy. So thank you very much. We appreciate all your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eustace, for that. And I think it's very safe to say that everybody who was on this line, whether joining us virtually, on Zoom or on Facebook or any other platform, that you are also a friend of Proudly SA. Thank you so much for joining us at this full session on the importance of industry in developing the local economy. Bye, everyone. We can go.
Guys, it was cool hanging out with you guys. Beautiful, professional. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So much. I'm actually going to go back and stream this and learn from it, let everybody share.
We did so well. We appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you for the
Thank you, everybody. Cheers, Eustace.